But first, the latest Redbridge poll released over the weekend showed Labor has a 52-48 2PP lead over the coalition. However, on primary vote terms, the coalition's still ahead at 36, Labor there at 33. Let's get into this and more with the Redbridge Director Kos Samaras. Kos, welcome. You're on a par there with Newspoll. We just discussed Newspoll. I'm keen on a few things here. What's driving this boost for Labor? I mean, is it coming from their base? Is their base coming home? Or are they picking up the undecideds here, do you think?
No, definitely it's coming from their base, which they lost over the last 18 months. So it's largely women in the outer suburbs and regions, no question. And that's a deliberate strategy of theirs that they've been implementing over the last 4 weeks.
So what's been the thing, though, that's turned those women back to Labor?
Yeah, it wasn't hard to win them back. All that camp had to do was basically start rolling out a number of policies, Medicare and the childcare announcement, and there was a big package around women's health. But they've been actually, through the social channels, ruthlessly targeting these women. So, through advertising, influencers, they've been really focused on this group. And it's not hard for them to bring it back. Flip side, I think, the Dutton camp made a very huge strategic error with regards to work from home. A lot of the women that we've been speaking to say that they thought it was extending to them, even though they were working in the private sector.
Yeah.
So it just helped Labor's campaign.
Yeah, because on those things you talked about there, women's policies, healthcare predominantly, Medicare, etc., all of those have been matched by the coalition. So something had to shift them back to Labor, given they're an even sort of Stevens race. And clearly it's work from home. I think Labor's scare campaign, they do a scare campaign very well. That made them think even if they weren't a public service player, that their flexibility was up for grabs. What else is an issue out there for the coalition? What would you be saying to them this week that they really need to turn the corner on? Yeah,
they've obviously got a problem. I mean, they're losing votes, not to Labor. They're losing votes to their right flank. And the thing about polling in this country over the last, I would say, 2 years is that it's probably not honest with, you folk and probably the public in terms of what has actually really happened. So late 2022, Palmer deregisters UAP. It wasn't really about 3 or 4 months after that we as pollsters start taking UAP out of the questions. And really we didn't see the manifestation of that and probably until about, I reckon, mid-2023. What happened about that time? Coalition vote starts going up, right? So 3% of that has gone back to the coalition during that period. Hence the coalition's been sitting on 39-40 for some time. Palmer starts his campaign at the beginning of March. What happens? Coalition loses about 3 points. And so that's what we're seeing here. Palmer's basically inflicting damage on the coalition. And we know that not all those votes come back. So again, we're back to 2022, where Palmer probably did more damage to the coalition than he did to Labor.
And the problem with Palmer, first manifestation, he had people in the parliament, but everyone had a good look at him then. He never turned up himself, or very rarely turned up. Most of his people quit the party, Jackie Lambie and others, they were all Palmer types. And so, in terms of a political force, he's a busted flush, but he does cleave off the vote. You're right to point out, as soon as he starts advertising and spending his millions, part of the coalition vote walks off to the right, and they don't return back in a disciplined way in terms of preferences. So how do you take him on then? What do you do?
Yeah, I think the coalition needs to be as strategic and as focused on getting these voters back as Labor was with their votes they lost to minor parties. And this is the new paradigm we're in. It's really about, those younger voters. If you're a younger voter and you've been voting for the LNP, you're more likely to, if you're upset about the state of play, you're more likely to just go and vote for a minor party. You're never going to go over to the Labor Party. And the same applies with, if you're voting Labor and you go to you're upset with Labor, you're going to go to a minor party. You're not going to go over to the LNP. We're seeing that across the country. And so I think their strategy needs to be, over the next couple of weeks, really focus on that group. I think their announcement yesterday with regards to the caps on international students is a good step forward. I mean, that was seen really well with this group, but they need to do more, obviously.
I want to ask you about something else, but just quickly, the UAP vote, are you seeing it pop up in particular states more than others?
Yeah, it's definitely very big in Victoria, and Victoria's going to be an interesting state to watch on election night. It's going to be bad for Labor, but the question is, will all those votes that Labor loses coalesce around the coalition? Will they spray? We're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah,
we're seeing it in parts of Western Sydney as well.
Okay. Well, just on Western Sydney, talk to me about the Muslim vote group. They joined forces with the Greens at a rally in Western Sydney on Sunday. 200-300 people were at the rally. How potent is this mob going to be in terms of driving votes? Not just noise, but driving votes.
Yeah, so we're looking at the federal seat of Watson, and Blaxland, for example, Jason Clare and Tony Burke's electorates. In particular, will they have an impact? And based on the data we're seeing, we're looking at about 5%, 6%. We have done some polling where we've dug pretty deep to see just how big this movement is. It's still in the single digits. So it's very noisy. But what we are learning about Australians, even those from the Muslim community, is they're quite diverse and they're not homogeneous. And so, it's no shock to us that we're only seeing a small number gravitate around this particular movement, and a lot of other Muslim Australians are just going to go and vote for someone else. In fact, we've seen some Muslim Australians who are going to vote for Clive Palmer. So,
well, there you go. We do not want to import this. I have to say, this sectarian cancer out of the UK and bring it to Australia. So that gives them a bit of hope there, Kos. Thanks for your time. We'll see you next week.
Yes.